COVID is continuing to take lives in Sydney, and the Premier has warned the surge in cases is showing no sign of letting up. A man in his 30s and another in his 90s have died. An additional 344 people have the virus. Less than half of those are confirmed to have been in isolation while infectious. Dubbo and Walgett are among the latest regional centres that are now in lockdown. We'll have more on that soon. In Sydney, the virus is continuing to spread through the inner west.
Those on the edge of Sydney's hotspots are on edge.
I'm actually kind of so scared to come to the work.
The fact that it doesn't seem to be getting any better doesn't make you feel any better.
The inner west, Burwood and Bayside, these are the new frontiers of the COVID crisis as the virus spreads from neighbouring suburbs.
Health may very well say to government today or tomorrow, the next day, as a precaution, we want you to lock down.
Life here is already getting harder. 2 workers at the Leichhardt bus depot have tested positive, forcing the cancellation of some services.
Just frustrating, but what do? You just have to get to work.
You rely on the service and you think the drivers are being careful, but...
The situation is stabilising in Canterbury Bankstown, but locals are still doing it tough. Amin El-Barini is organising essentials for the elderly.
It's like a sense of belonging to the place, so we all are trying to do our best. We're all coping with the restrictions and what the government is asking us to do, and we hope we'll together get through it.
Not everyone's so considerate. This 50-year-old man has been charged after allegedly punching a nurse in the head at a testing clinic in Dundas. Rebecca Boycheska says staff are regularly abused.
We get people screaming out of their cars, disrespectful language, terrible things.
Another 344 people have been infected and 2 men have died. One was in his 90s, the other in his 30s.
He was not vaccinated but had some significant underlying health conditions.
Yet another aged care home is in lockdown, this time at St Mary's. A nurse has COVID, but most residents are vaccinated.
Playgrounds have become a respite for many parents stuck at home with little kids, but this one at Bardwell Valley has become a potential exposure site, making some families nervous.
It's really, really scary.
In Sydney's east, dozens are taking advantage of the warmer weather. But authorities have this warning.
Once again, once you've done your exercise, please move on.
We're in a lockdown and there's more people out than usual. It's not good.
I think it's okay as long as everyone's socially distanced and following the rules.
The whole city is depending on that. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Sydney.
In breaking news, a number of new local government areas in Western New South Wales have gone into lockdown tonight. Gary John Lysart is in Dubbo for us. Gary, what are the areas affected?
Yeah, good evening, Jeremy. Additional areas in northwest New South Wales are going into lockdown from 7 p.m. tonight. The local government areas of Walgett, Bogan, Burke, Brewarrina, Coonamble, Gilgandra, Narromine and Warren will all be under the stay-at-home orders. It comes after a COVID positive case went to Walgett, leading to several close contacts, and those orders will remain in place for at least a week. But Jeremy, here in Dubbo, where lockdown started as well today, there's been a lot of feeling of inevitability that it was only going to be so long before this lockdown would start. Obviously, businesses are concerned about the impact that it's going to have on them. But, there's also a hope that a lot of people will come together, follow the rules, and hopefully get this lockdown over with in a week's time. With just a few hours' notice, the Dubbo lockdown was locked in. 2 people have tested positive to COVID-19, one linked to a local primary school.
The people that have been infected with this virus are scared. I know the community's scared. This is the time for us to come together.
People came out in large numbers for testing, some waiting up to 5 hours. Everyone's being urged to stick by the rules.
The time for education has passed, so police will be taking an enforcement stance in relation to the public health order.
Police have now charged the 52-year-old Sydney man who triggered the North Coast's lockdown with breaching public health orders. Zoran Radovanovic and his 2 children allegedly drove to the Byron area last month and have since tested positive. Elsewhere in the state, Bathurst Jail went into lockdown after a prisoner released on bail on Monday tested positive. The 27-year-old man had travelled to Walgett, nearly 500 kilometres away. As a result, the Walgett LGA has now also gone into lockdown. In the Hunter, more cases have been detected.
So Hunter does not look like it'll come out of lockdown later this week.
11 residents of an aged care facility in Edgeworth have tested positive, as has a second staff member. There was better news from testing at another facility at Waratah, which also has an infected worker.
They have all come back negative. That is for all the residents and the majority of the staff.
With COVID being detected in a growing number of regions, sparking snap lockdowns, some say a statewide lockdown might need to be considered, depending on how the situation progresses.
If there is shown to be more cases and a real concern about transmission, that would be looked at.
No longer confined to Sydney, reining in COVID-19 is proving a major challenge. Gary John Lysart, ABC News, Dubbo.
The Premier has asked for health advice on what restrictions could be eased if 6 million jabs are reached by the end of this month. Any changes are likely to be minimal at best and may only apply to specific suburbs. Here's state political reporter Ashley Raper.
Out of a hotspot and cleared to work.
I think everyone's glad to be getting out. I spoke to one guy who said it's a shame when we're excited to go to work, isn't it?
Dean Berenger was able to leave Blacktown today and get back to a construction site in the east for the first time in weeks. Like all construction workers from areas of concern, to do it, he had to be vaccinated.
Most people are just wanting to get back to work and doing what they need to make it happen.
We've seen how the incentive of getting back to work in the last few days has really ignited people to get vaccinated.
4.5 million shots have now been given in New South Wales, and the government says the state is on track to hit the 6 million target by the end of the month. That's 50% and is a mix of adults having one or both doses. It's estimated 70% of the adult population will have had both doses by the end of October, and then 80% will be hit by mid-November.
That's when life looks like getting back to normal. That's when we have a different approach to COVID. That's when the freedoms that we had before this outbreak are certainly going to be in place.
This is in line with the national plan, which is based on modelling from the Doherty Institute, and that's also being used as a guide for emerging from lockdown.
The Doherty report says that if you want significant freedoms, you need 70% of your population fully vaccinated.
The Premier was clear today life will remain difficult in September and October. Gladys Berejiklian insists there will be some reward for meeting the 50% vaccination target by the end of the month. But after days of trying to sound optimistic, she still won't give a hint as to what could change.
During September and October, we have higher rates of vaccination and certain communities indicate lower number of cases. There are opportunities for us to see what additional freedoms we give people.
The Premier has just asked us to provide advice on what would be low-risk activities.
The risk of the virus continuing to spread remains the biggest concern for health authorities. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Dining out may look a little different soon, with talk of a vaccine passport for customers and mandatory vaccinations for hospitality workers. A survey released today shows many Australian restaurants support the idea, and it's something other nations are doing already. Eden Hennanen reports.
Sydney restaurateur Leanne Shai had a close call with COVID-19 last year.
We did have a scare in our 6th week where we had a customer come in that tested positive 4 days later.
She has multiple sclerosis and is immunocompromised, and that's why she supports mandatory vaccinations in the hospitality industry.
I am more than comfortable to say no to somebody about coming into the restaurant if they're not vaccinated, because it puts not just my staff and myself at risk, it also puts my customers at risk that have been vaccinated.
A new survey released today by Restaurants and Catering Australia shows 63% of member businesses want to mandate vaccines for staff in the hospitality industry. Half want customers to be vaccinated.
Many businesses around the country need light at the end of the tunnel. They need something to let their staff know, their customers know, is certainty.
We shouldn't wait until vaccination rates are at really high levels before allowing our citizens some freedoms to come out of their homes.
But not all are convinced.
What happens if our employees don't want to be vaccinated? What happens to them? They become a second-class citizen, they can't get any work anywhere. I mean, it creates a precedent in terms of impinging on liberties.
Successive lockdowns across Australia have had a huge impact on the hospitality sector in cities and towns across the nation. Many have had to close their doors, while others rely on takeaway just to get by. But many say they might not be able to survive much longer if lockdown continues.
I think it's the only way we're going to get out of this. I think it's the only way that restaurants who have huge rents, who are not surviving on delivery, I think it's the only way that they're going to be able to get to be open again.
It's estimated lockdowns have cost the Australian economy more than $20 billion. Eden Hennanen, ABC News.
Residents in and around Cairns have come out of lockdown this afternoon after Queensland recorded just 4 new cases. Melburnians, though, aren't so lucky. The city will spend another 7 days in lockdown because of concerns about a number of mystery cases of coronavirus. 20 new local cases were announced in Victoria today. 5 haven't been linked to current outbreaks. The Victorian Premier, Daniel Andrews, says if restrictions were relaxed now, the state would rapidly lose control of the situation.
The extreme infectivity of this virus and the fact that within a very short space of time, if we were to open, then we would see cases akin to what's happening tragically in Sydney right now.
The Premier also announced the cross-border bubble with New South Wales will be tightened even more. Permits will be required for all border crossings from Friday night. For more on those changes, Erin Somerville joins us now from Wodonga. Erin, what will this permit system be like?
Well, restrictions are already in place here in the border region for why people can enter Victoria. What will change this week is from 6 p.m. on Friday, these residents will need to apply for a permit and carry that as they head into Victoria for those 10 necessary and permitted reasons. Now, police say that they'll be enforcing this through mobile patrols, unlike last year when the permit system was in play and they had set up permanent checkpoints on the border. Now, we've spoke to locals here who are very frustrated and say it's unnecessary as the Albury-Wodonga region has just recorded over a year without a COVID-19 case.
Erin Somerville reporting.